30 minutes after takeoff, soaring at 35,000 feet above Georgia, Amara Jackson cradled her 6-month-old son, Isaiah, in first class. Her dark skin glowed under the soft cabin lights. Suddenly, Claire Ramsey, a stern-looking white flight attendant, stormed down the aisle, her crisp uniform exuding authority. Isaiah cooed softly, an innocent sound lost in the tension. Without warning, Claire struck Amara hard across the face. The slap echoed through the cabin. Passengers froze, eyes wide in shock, mouths agape. Then, a deep voice thundered over the intercom. "Claire Ramsey, you're finished." Claire's smirk faltered, her confidence shaken. Her gaze darted around in confusion. "Who said that?" she demanded. Amara's expression remained composed, but beneath her calm exterior, a storm brewed, one that would upend lives. The first-class cabin of Horizon Airlines Flight 217 from Atlanta to Los Angeles was blanketed in stunned silence, broken only by the hum of the engines cutting through the sky. Amara sat in seat 3A, the stinging imprint of Claire's hand still burning on her cheek. The pain radiated down her jaw, but she refused to show weakness. Isaiah nestled against her, his tiny fingers grasping her blouse, blissfully unaware of the chaos that had just erupted. Amara's deep brown eyes locked onto Claire's, unwavering and unyielding. She would not cry. She would not cower. Passengers fidgeted in their seats. Some pulled out their phones, fingers trembling as they pressed record, capturing the aftermath of an unthinkable moment. Claire, a woman in her early 40s with sharp features and blonde hair pulled into a severe bun, towered over Amara. Her navy blue uniform was immaculate, but the sneer twisting her face made her look anything but professional. Her pale skin flushed with disdain. "People like you don't belong up here," she hissed. "Keep that baby quiet or get out." The words dripped with contempt. The meaning was clear. Amara's presence, her skin color, her child, none of it belonged in first class, not in Claire's world. A murmur rippled through the cabin, passengers exchanging glances. A white businessman 2 rows back muttered to his seatmate, "She's got some nerve bringing a baby up here." His voice held a note of disapproval. Nearby, a young Latina woman shook her head in disbelief, her thumb hovering over her phone screen, hesitating on whether to post the unfolding drama. Amara didn't flinch. She adjusted Isaiah with deliberate care, her silence a fortress Claire couldn't penetrate. Claire's confidence flickered for a brief moment as she registered the defiance in Amara's gaze. But she wasn't about to back down. She straightened her posture, preparing to assert her authority again. The intercom crackled to life, slicing through the tension like a blade. "This is Marcus Ellison, CEO of Horizon Airlines," a deep, steady voice announced. "That's my wife you just hit." A collective gasp rippled through the cabin. Every head snapped toward the ceiling speakers. Eyes widened, mouths dropped open. Passengers exchanged frantic looks. "Did he just say CEO?" A gray-haired woman in 5C whispered to her husband. "Oh, she's done for," murmured the Latina woman, now recording with renewed purpose. Claire's smirk disintegrated. Panic flickered in her sharp features. She let out a nervous laugh, high-pitched and forced. "That's ridiculous. Someone's playing a prank," she scoffed, trying to regain control. She waved a dismissive hand, manicured nails catching the overhead light, and spun on her heel to march toward the galley. Her steps were clipped, her confidence forced, but she only made it a few steps before another voice cut through the cabin. "Claire Ramsey, this is Captain Holloway," the pilot's voice boomed. "That was Marcus Ellison. Report to the galley immediately." The reaction was instant. A businessman in the pinstripe suit jolted, knocking over his whiskey glass. Amber liquid spilled across his tray table as he gaped at the unfolding drama. The Latina woman's eyes sparkled with satisfaction. Her phone's camera remained trained on Claire. Claire stopped mid-step, her shoulders locking in place. Reality sank in. She turned back, her pale face stricken, scanning the rows for someone, anyone, who might tell her this was a mistake. Her eyes landed on Amara again. Amara didn't say a word. She simply rocked Isaiah gently, her expression unreadable. Claire's lips parted, but no words came. Her power, her self-appointed kingdom of first class, was crumbling. Captain Holloway emerged from the cockpit, his presence commanding. A broad-shouldered man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and a no-nonsense expression. He strode purposefully down the aisle. His polished shoes thudded against the carpeted floor as he came to a stop beside Claire. "Now," he ordered. Claire's jaw clenched. Her face burned with humiliation as she realized every pair of eyes in the cabin was fixed on her. Some passengers smirked. Others glared. Phones were still raised, recording every second. Forcing a tight smile, she tried to maintain some shred of dignity and followed the captain toward the galley, her steps stiff and mechanical. As she passed Amara's seat, she didn't dare look at her again. She couldn't resist a final jab, her voice low and venomous. "You think you've won? I'll fix this, you little..." She trailed off, muttering a racial slur under her breath. Too faint for the captain to catch, but loud enough for Amara to hear every syllable. Amara's fingers tightened around Isaiah, her nails pressing into her palms. But her face remained an unshaken mask of composure. She refused to give Claire the satisfaction of seeing the anger simmering beneath her skin, the rage at being reduced to a stereotype in front of strangers. The captain steered Claire into the galley, the curtains swishing shut behind them, muffling the sharp exchange that followed. Passengers craned their necks, eager to listen in, but the thick fabric blocked their attempts. Inside, Claire's voice rose, sharp and indignant. "She doesn't belong here. First class isn't for people with screaming brats." Captain Holloway silenced her with an icy tone. "You struck a passenger, Claire. Marcus Ellison's wife. You're lucky you're not in cuffs right now." Back in the cabin, the atmosphere shifted. The Latina woman lowered her phone, her expression softening as she leaned toward Amara. "You okay?" she asked gently. Amara nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips, though her cheeks still burned. "I've had worse," she said softly, her voice calm despite the turmoil. The businessman in the pinstripe suit avoided her gaze, suddenly engrossed in wiping his spilled whiskey, as if ashamed of his earlier remark. Across the aisle, a teenage boy in a hoodie gave Amara a thumbs up, his grin wide and conspiratorial. A fleeting moment of solidarity, a brief light in the storm Claire had unleashed. Meanwhile, in the galley, Claire leaned against the counter, arms crossed tightly, her mind racing. The intercom announcement replayed in her head. Marcus Ellison. Husband. It didn't make sense. How could that woman, with her cheap blouse and fidgeting baby, be married to the man who owned Horizon Airlines? Claire's worldview, built on rigid lines of who belonged where, wavered under the weight of reality. She had assumed Amara was an imposter, a nobody who had somehow tricked her way into first class. But now the power balance had shifted, and Claire despised it. Her fingers twitched toward her phone, tucked in her apron pocket. She wasn't going down without a fight. She would turn this around.
Suspension?
Termination. Not if she had anything to say about it. The captain exited the galley, leaving Claire alone with her scheming. He returned to the cockpit, his expression grim, knowing this was far from over. Claire pulled out her phone, her thumbs moving rapidly as she sent a message to her union rep, Ted, a wiry man she had known for years. "They're trying to fire me over some black chick with a baby. Ellison's wife, they say. Total setup. Get me out of this." She hit send, her pulse pounding with defiance. This wasn't over. Not even close. She would make Amara regret ever setting foot in her first-class cabin, for daring to exist in a space Claire didn't believe she belonged. In seat 3A, Amara rocked Isaiah, his soft breath steadying her racing heart. She touched her cheek, the sting of the slap still fresh, but her mind was elsewhere. Marcus' voice over the intercom had been a lifeline, a shield of protection. She had expected him to step in, but not like this, not in such a public way. Her gaze drifted to the window, watching the clouds streak past like white fire, and she whispered to herself, she has no idea what's coming. Claire had thought she had humiliated Amara, stripped her of dignity in front of everyone. But it wasn't Amara who had been humiliated. Claire's smug authority was slipping, and her fall would be devastating. Passengers settled back into their seats, though some continued to glance at Amara. Others kept their eyes on the galley curtain, where Claire hid. The cabin lights dimmed slightly, the plane gliding smoothly toward Los Angeles. But tension hung thick in the air, a storm cloud waiting to break. Claire's muttered slur echoed in Amara's mind, fueling a quiet determination. She wasn't just a passenger caught in a racist outburst. She was Marcus Ellison's wife, and that meant a level of power Claire couldn't even comprehend. The slap wasn't the end. It was the spark. And as the plane soared through the night, Amara knew the real battle was only beginning. The Horizon Airlines flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles sliced through the dark sky, its engines a steady roar beneath the dimmed cabin lights. 40 minutes from touchdown. In Seat 3A, Amara Jackson cradled her 6-month-old son against her chest, his tiny breaths a soft rhythm in the wake of the chaos. Her cheek still pulsed with heat from Claire Ramsey's slap, a dull ache in sync with her heartbeat. But she kept her gaze on the window, watching the clouds twist like smoke against the black expanse. She had won, hadn't she? Marcus' voice over the intercom had shifted the dynamic, stripping Claire of her smug control in front of everyone. Yet unease gnawed at Amara, a whisper of doubt she couldn't shake. In the galley, behind the thick blue curtain, Claire Ramsey paced like a trapped animal, her heels scraping against the linoleum floor. Her blonde bun had loosened, stray strands falling across her flushed face, but her eyes burned with defiance. Captain Holloway stood before her, his broad frame filling the narrow space, his salt and pepper hair glinting under the dim overhead light. "You're suspended, Claire," he said, his voice a measured growl, firm but sharp. "Conduct unbecoming. You struck a passenger, Marcus Ellison's wife, no less. You're off this flight the moment we land." The words struck Claire like a slap of their own. Her pale hands curled into fists at her sides. Suspended, not fired, not yet. But her authority had been publicly stripped, her power revoked mid-flight. And she knew this was far from over. Passengers, still reeling from Marcus' revelation, shifted their focus. The Latina woman in 4B, her phone now resting idly in her lap, leaned across the aisle toward Amara. "That was unreal. You're tougher than she'll ever be," she said, her voice laced with admiration. Amara offered a small nod, a tired smile ghosting her lips. "Thank you," she murmured, adjusting Isaiah's blanket. The teenage boy in the hoodie, seated in 6C, piped up next, his voice cracking with excitement. "Man, she got wrecked. Did you see her face when the CEO spoke?" A ripple of laughter spread through the rows, lightening the mood. Even the businessman in the pinstriped suit, who had spilled his whiskey earlier, glanced over with a reluctant nod, his previous judgment softened by the turn of events. Back in the galley, Claire's mind raced, her breaths coming in short, furious bursts. Suspension wasn't the end. She would claw her way back. She glared at Captain Holloway, her voice rising, brittle and sharp. "This is insane. That woman doesn't belong in first class. Baby or not. I was doing my job, keeping order." Holloway's jaw tightened, his gaze steely as he took a step closer. "Your job doesn't include assault, Claire. Marcus Ellison is on the line right now, and he's promising further action. You're lucky I'm not restraining you in the jump seat." Claire's stomach twisted, but she forced a scoff, her arrogance a flimsy shield. "Further action? He's bluffing. She's just some nobody with a rich husband." The captain didn't respond. He turned, brushing past the curtain, leaving Claire alone with her fury. Her hand shot to her apron pocket, fingers trembling as she yanked out her phone and frantically typed a message to Ted, her union rep. "Suspended mid-flight over that black chick. They're saying she's Ellison's wife. Total setup. Fight this, Ted. I'm not going down." She hit send, her pulse pounding in her ears. This won't stand. She'd turn the narrative, make them see Amara as the real problem, the intruder. Her lips curled into a bitter smirk. She'd handled passengers like Amara before, people she'd pegged as out of place, and she had always come out on top. This time wouldn't be any different. In the cabin, a junior flight attendant named Leia approached Amara hesitantly, her freckled face flushed with nerves. She carried a folded blanket and a bottle of water, her hazel eyes darting toward the galley curtain before settling on Amara. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry about everything," she said softly, sincerity threading her words. "Here, for you and the little one." She handed over the items, her hands lingering as if unsure whether to say more. Amara took the blanket, draping it over Isaiah's tiny frame. She met Leia's gaze. "It's not your fault," she reassured her, her voice gentle but firm. "I'm okay." "We're okay." Leia nodded, relief washing over her, then stepped back, disappearing down the aisle to tend to other passengers. Amara leaned back in her seat, the leather creaking beneath her, and exhaled slowly. The applause from earlier echoed in her mind, the passengers' support a fleeting balm. She whispered to Isaiah, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. "We're safe now, baby. She's gone." The words felt true, a fragile victory settling in her chest. Claire was suspended, humiliated, out of sight behind that curtain. Marcus had her back, his voice a thunderclap that had shattered Claire's false sense of control. Amara's fingers brushed Isaiah's soft curls as her mind drifted to the landing ahead. Maybe this was over. Maybe she could walk off this plane and leave the sting of Claire's hand behind. But then it happened. A faint ping sounded from the Latina woman's phone in 4B. She glanced at the screen, her eyes widening before she leaned toward Amara again, urgency lacing her voice. "You need to see this." She turned the phone toward Amara, the screen glowing with a video thumbnail. Claire's slap frozen mid-motion. Amara's stunned face, captured in sharp detail. The bold title blazed across the screen. "Racist flight attendant owned." The view count ticked upward. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. All while they were still mid-flight. The video was spreading like wildfire. Comments flooded the screen beneath it. "She deserved it. Horizon needs to fire her. That's Marcus Ellison's wife. Game over." Amara's breath hitched. Her victory suddenly felt sharper, more tangible. The world knew now. Claire couldn't hide in the galley. Meanwhile, Claire's phone buzzed. Ted's reply flashed across her screen. "On it. We'll push back. Suspension's not termination. Stay cool." Claire smirked, a flicker of triumph slicing through her rage. The Union had her back. She'd spin this, make Amara the villain, claim she'd been provoked. She didn't hear the captain's radio crackle in the cockpit, didn't catch Marcus' voice filtering through, low and lethal. "Suspension's just the start, Holloway. She's done at Horizon. Make sure she knows." Holloway's response was curt. "Understood, sir." But Claire, oblivious, leaned against the galley counter, fingers tapping out a rhythm of vengeance. In her seat, Amara stared at the phone screen, the viral video a double-edged sword. It was justice, yes, but it was exposure, too. Her face, her pain, splashed across the internet for strangers to dissect. She handed the phone back, her hands steady despite the storm churning inside her. "Thank you," she murmured. The Latina woman nodded, her expression fierce. "She's finished now." Amara wanted to believe it. Claire was suspended. The video was out. Marcus was in control. Felt like a win. A clean break from the nightmare that had unfolded at 35,000 feet. But unease still lingered, a shadow creeping into her relief. Claire's muttered slur replayed in her mind, the venom behind it not just an insult, but a promise. Amara hugged Isaiah closer, his warmth grounding her. She had survived the slap, the humiliation, and now the world was on her side. Or was it? The plane dipped slightly, a tremor of turbulence rattling the overhead bins, a jolt that mirrored the uncertainty in her gut. Claire wasn't the type to slink away. Amara knew that much, and as the landing gear hummed to life, preparing for descent, she couldn't shake the feeling that this so-called victory was just the calm before a much bigger, much uglier storm. Hey, amazing viewers, what do you think? Comment 1 if you agree. Claire's suspension isn't enough. She needs to be fired for good. Or drop a 2 if you think Amara should have fought back right then and there. If you're raging at this injustice like we are, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next twist, because this story is heating up. And we need you with us. Will Claire slink away quietly? Or is she planning something worse than just a slap? What's her next move? The Horizon Airlines flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles continued its steady descent. And down below, the world was already watching. The plane cruised steadily at 35,000 feet, the cabin lights casting a soft glow over the first-class seats as it neared its final descent. Amara Jackson sat in 3A, her 6-month-old son, Isaiah, nestled against her chest, his tiny snores a fragile tether anchoring her to the present. The sting from Claire Ramsey's slap still lingered, a dull ache pulsing beneath her skin. But the warmth of the blanket Leia had given her and the passenger's fleeting support had lulled her into a wary sense of calm. She gazed out the window, the city lights of Los Angeles twinkling below like scattered stars. Maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind her. Marcus' commanding voice, the captain's swift orders, the viral video. It all signaled Claire's downfall, or so she thought. In the cramped galley at the back of the plane, Claire Ramsey stood rigid, her suspension a fresh wound she refused to let fester. The thick curtains separating her from the passengers felt insubstantial, their judgment bleeding through like an unshakable presence. Her blonde hair, now unpinned, clung to her sweat-dampened forehead, and her navy uniform, wrinkled from restless pacing, only fueled her frustration. Her fingers tightened around her phone, her last weapon, her final chance to turn this around. Claire's thumbs flew over the keyboard, crafting a message to Ted, her union rep, not as a plea but as ammunition. "She provoked me," she typed, her nails digging into the screen. "That black chick with the baby was screaming, disrupting everyone. I acted to protect the passengers. Now they're calling me racist? This is reverse discrimination, Ted. Spin it." She hit send, her lips curling into a smirk. The viral video might have painted her as the villain, but she wasn't about to let it define her. She'd twist the narrative, shift the blame, and make Amara the real problem, the entitled outsider who had played the race card to bring down a hardworking white woman. She had done it before, rewritten the truth to protect her own power. She would do it again. The plane jolted slightly, a pocket of turbulence rattling the overhead bins. Almost instantly, her phone buzzed with Ted's reply. "Got it. Posting on X now. We'll flip the narrative." Hang tai. Claire's smirk widened. Ted was quick, ruthless. A bulldog in a cheap suit who had saved her skin before. She opened X herself, her pulse steady as she typed, carefully crafting her words. "Attacked by a disruptive passenger in first class today. Baby screaming, mother refusing to cooperate. I acted to maintain order, now I'm suspended. This is what happens when you enforce rules against the wrong people." She tagged Horizon Airlines, hit post, and watched the engagement climb. The likes trickled in first, then comments, angry, indignant, supportive. Back in first class, Amara's brief moment of peace shattered as Leia, the junior attendant, hurried down the aisle, her freckled face pale with alarm. She stopped beside Amara, gripping her phone like a live wire. "You need to see this," she whispered, her voice unsteady as she thrust the screen forward. Amara took it, her fingers brushing Leia's cold ones, and stared at the post. X was already ablaze with Claire's version of events, 500 likes and rising. Ted's follow-up was even worse. Claire Ramsey is a hero being targeted by a privileged passenger and her CEO husband. Reverse discrimination at its finest. Reinstate her now. A flood of replies poured in, each more vicious than the last. Welfare queen snuck into first class. Typical. Crying racism to get her way. Horizon is caving to the woke mob. Amara's stomach turned, her breath catching in her throat. The viral video racist flight attendant owned had been her shield, but now it was cracking. She scrolled further, her pulse pounding as racist trolls piled on. Go back to the projects where you belong. Bet she's never worked a day in her life. Watch your back, lady. Someone needs to shut her up for good. Her hands trembled as she handed the phone back to Leia. They're lying, she whispered, her voice tight, her earlier calm fracturing. Leia's face crumpled, her voice barely audible over the engine's steady hum. I'm so sorry. This isn't right. She glanced toward the galley, where Claire lurked unseen, and Amara followed her gaze. She couldn't see Claire, but she felt her, a gloating shadow lurking just out of sight. The passengers around her shifted uneasily. Their earlier support wavered. The Latina woman in 4B frowned at her own phone, murmuring, "This can't be real. Can it?" The teenage boy in 6C, once grinning, now scrolled in silence, his fingers hesitating as doubt crept in. The businessman in the pinstriped suit scoffed, shaking his head. "Maybe she did push her too far," he muttered, loud enough for Amara to hear. The unity of the cabin splintered, suspicion seeping in like fog. Amara pulled Isaiah closer, his warmth grounding her as her mind raced. Claire wasn't done. Her suspension hadn't silenced her. It had ignited something worse. This wasn't over. Amara yanked out her phone, her fingers steady despite the panic clawing at her chest, and dialed Marcus. He picked up on the first ring, his voice deep, urgent. "Amara, you okay? I saw the video. She's suspended." "It's worse now," Amara cut in, her words rushing out. "She's lying online, Marcus, saying I attacked her. People are threatening me." Marcus' silence stretched for a beat. Then his tone hardened, steel in every syllable. "I'll sue her for defamation. She won't get away with this." Amara nodded, even though he couldn't see her, clinging to his promise like a life raft in a storm. She ended the call, her gaze drifting back to the window. The lights of Los Angeles were closer now, a sprawling grid of both hope and danger. Marcus' influence was her shield, but Claire's retaliation was a blade she hadn't anticipated. The plane banked slightly as it began its descent, and Amara's pulse quickened. She had thought the slap was the worst of it, that Claire's humiliation would be the end. But this smear campaign was bigger, uglier, a racial firestorm she couldn't outrun at 35,000 feet. She pressed a soft kiss to Isaiah's forehead, whispering, "We'll fight this, baby." Her voice was a vow against the tide of hatred rising against her. In the crew area, Claire refreshed X, her smirk widening as Ted's post hit 1,000 likes. Racist trolls swarmed the thread, their fury a chorus she had orchestrated with a few well-placed lies. The truth didn't matter. Amara had provoked her simply by existing, by daring to sit in first class with her dark skin and her baby, by being Marcus Ellison's wife. Claire's worldview demanded she punish that, and now she had an army willing to do it for her. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, her excitement barely contained. "Thank you for the support. I'm the real victim here. She's using her husband's money to silence me." The likes spiked again. Her grin stretched wider. She had flipped the script, turned Amara's moment of victory into a trap. The cabin lights flickered as the plane descended further, the captain's voice crackling over the intercom. "Prepare for landing in Los Angeles. Cabin crew, take your seats." Claire remained where she was, her suspension barring her from the jump seat. Not that she cared. She had planted the seeds, and they were sprouting fast. She could practically feel Amara's panic from across the plane. Picture her scrolling through the hate, watching the walls close in. Good, she thought. Let her squirm. Her phone buzzed again. Ted. Union's pushing Horizon hard. We'll get you back. She leaned back, satisfaction curling in her chest. Suspension was temporary. She would win this war, make Amara regret ever stepping onto her plane. Amara sat rigid in 3A, the city lights now an overwhelming sprawl beneath her. The viral video had been her triumph, but Claire's lies had poisoned it, turning strangers into enemies. Marcus' lawsuit could fight the defamation, but the damage was spreading, a wildfire she couldn't contain. She glanced at Isaiah, his peaceful sleep a stark contrast to the storm raging in her mind. She had believed she was safe, that Claire's suspension was the end. But now, with every new notification, she felt the ground slipping away beneath her. The plane's wheels extended with a mechanical whine, the landing now imminent. But Amara knew this wasn't an escape. Claire's retaliation had begun, and it was only going to get worse. The Horizon Airlines flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles touched down with a sharp jolt, the wheels screeching against the runway as the plane slowed to a halt at the gate. Amara Jackson sat in seat 3A, her 6-month-old son Isaiah stirring against her chest, his soft whimpers breaking the heavy silence that had settled over her during the final descent. Her cheek still throbbed from Claire Ramsey's slap, a lingering sting now overshadowed by the digital firestorm Claire had unleashed mid-flight. Amara's phone rested in her lap, its screen dark, yet heavy with the weight of the racist threats and lies she had glimpsed before takeoff. She adjusted Isaiah's blanket, her fingers trembling slightly, and took a deep breath. The plane had been her battlefield, but the terminal ahead promised safety. Marcus was waiting. She would walk off this nightmare and leave Claire's hatred behind. That's what she told herself. The cabin lights brightened, and passengers unbuckled their seatbelts, stretching and gathering their belongings with the casual ease of those untouched by the storm she had endured. The Latina woman in 4B offered her a sympathetic nod as she stood, tucking her phone away. The teenage boy in 6C flashed a quick grin, his hoodie casting a shadow over his face. The businessman in the pinstripe suit, however, avoided her gaze entirely. His earlier skepticism had hardened into indifference as he yanked his briefcase from the overhead bin. Amara rose slowly, her legs stiff from hours of tension, and slung her small diaper bag over her shoulder. She cradled Isaiah, his warmth steadying her, and stepped into the aisle. The jet bridge lay ahead, a tunnel to freedom. Behind the galley curtain, Claire Ramsey watched as passengers filed out. Her blonde hair hung in disarray, her uniform crumpled, but her pale eyes gleamed with vicious satisfaction. Suspension hadn't broken her, it had sharpened her edge. Her phone buzzed nonstop, X notifications flooding in as her smear campaign gained traction. Ted's latest message glowed on the screen. Supporters are rallying at LAX. Show them you're the victim. We've got this. Claire's lips curled into a grin. She had taken Amara's viral victory and turned it into a weapon. And now her army awaited. She remained behind, letting the captain and crew exit first. She wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. Amara stepped out of the jet bridge and into the bustling Los Angeles terminal, the air thick with the hum of announcements and the constant shuffle of travelers. She scanned the crowd, searching for Marcus' familiar 6 feet 4 inches frame, his broad shoulders a beacon she needed now more than ever. The glass walls reflected a sea of faces, but something felt off. A cluster of people near the gate stood too still, their gazes locked onto her, their postures rigid. Then she heard it, a low chant rising from the group, growing louder with every step she took. Go back to coach. You don't belong. The words hit her like a blow, knocking the breath from her lungs. She froze mid-stride, her grip tightening on Isaiah. The mob surged forward, at least a dozen strong, their faces twisted with rage. Claire's lies had set them ablaze. Men in trucker hats, women clutching purses, handmade signs waved angrily in the air. Justice for Claire. No special treatment. Their voices overlapped in a vicious cacophony, fueled by ex-posts and Ted's rallying cries. She attacked a worker, a burly man bellowed, his beard flecked with spit. Welfare trash in first class, a woman shrieked, her blonde curls bouncing as she jabbed a finger at Amara. Cameras flashed, not from passengers now, but from the mob, their phones aimed to capture Amara's every flinch. 2 lanky security guards in gray uniforms rushed toward her, but the crowd pressed in closer, their shouts drowning out the guards' orders to disperse. Amara clutched Isaiah tighter, his whimpers turning to cries as the noise swallowed them. Her heart pounded, her eyes darting in search of an escape, but the mob closed in like a pack of wolves. You think you're better than us? A man in a red cap snarled, stepping within arm's reach. Amara's voice wavered but remained firm. defying the fear clawing at her throat. "Back off. I'm just trying to leave." Her defiance only fueled their rage. The chants twisted into slurs, words she had read online but never faced so directly, so viciously. "Go back where you came from," they roared, their hatred forming a wall she couldn't push through. Then Claire stepped out from the jet bridge, flanked by a third security guard. Her head was high, her smirk barely concealed as she kept her distance, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold like a conductor reveling in her orchestra. The mob spotted her, their furious cries shifting into shouts of support. "Claire's the real victim," a woman shouted, hoisting a sign high above her head. Claire nodded, subtle but deliberate, locking eyes with Amara across the terminal. A silent taunt. "I did this." She had turned her suspension into a rallying cry, her lies igniting a firestorm that Amara hadn't seen coming. The guards fought to hold the line, forming a thin barrier between Amara and the raging crowd, but their efforts barely made a dent. The mob wasn't backing down. Their phones kept rolling, live-streaming her humiliation to the world. Then Marcus arrived, his towering frame cut through the terminal like a blade, his dark suit a stark contrast to the chaos. His deep voice thundered through the space, a force that silenced the mob for a split second. "Get away from my wife. Now." His presence was electric, his brown eyes blazing as he shoved past a heckler, a man in a flannel shirt, who stumbled backward, stunned. The security guards, emboldened by Marcus' authority, redoubled their efforts, ushering the crowd back with raised but unused batons. The mob hesitated. Some retreated under Marcus' glare, muttering curses as they backed away, their signs drooping like withered flags. Amara exhaled sharply, her legs weak with relief as Marcus reached her, wrapping his arms around both her and Isaiah. "I've got you," he murmured, his voice low but fierce with protectiveness. She leaned into him, pressing her cheek against his chest. The echoes of the mob faded as his steady heartbeat grounded her. Then he turned to Claire. She stood 50 feet away, her smirk flickering as she met his gaze. "You're fired," Marcus declared, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "Effective immediately. No appeal. You're done at Horizon." Claire's face contorted, her pale skin flushing red as she stepped forward, disbelief sharpening her voice. "You can't do this. I have rights. The union." Marcus cut her off, his tone like ice. "Assaulting my wife, smearing her online. You have nothing. Get out of my airport." The security guard beside Claire gripped her arm, pulling her back as she shrieked, "This isn't over. You'll pay for this." Her threats rang hollow against Marcus' authority, but her eyes burned with a promise of vengeance. She yanked free, storming toward the exit, her heels clicking furiously against the floor. Amara watched her go, Marcus' arm still a shield around her shoulders. The mob had dispersed, their cameras lowered, their hateful energy drained. A flicker of triumph surged in Amara's chest. Claire wasn't just suspended. She was gone. Marcus had crushed her, right in front of everyone. Isaiah quieted, his tiny body finally relaxing as Amara rocked him gently, whispering, "We're okay now." The words were meant for herself as much as for him. She looked up at Marcus, his jaw tense, his sharp gaze sweeping the terminal, still on high alert. He had saved her, turned an ambush into a retreat. It should have been over. But as they walked toward the baggage claim, a chill ran down Amara's spine. Claire's parting scream echoed in her mind, a vow that didn't feel empty. The glass walls reflected their figures. Marcus standing tall, Amara holding Isaiah close. But beyond their reflections, a shadow moved. A man in a gray hoodie lingered near the exit, phone pressed to his ear, his eyes locked on Claire as she disappeared into the crowd. Amara didn't see him. She was focused on Marcus, on the safety he promised. But the man nodded once and then slipped outside. The ambush had failed, but Claire's war had just begun. 2 hours later, the Los Angeles airport terminal blurred into the background as Amara stepped into a cramped security office, still cradling Isaiah. The room's glass walls reflected her exhausted face, her cheek now mottled with purple where Claire's slap had landed. The harsh fluorescent lights made the bruise look even worse. Marcus stood beside her, his broad frame tense, his dark suit slightly disheveled from forcing his way through the mob earlier. His deep voice rumbled with restrained fury as he spoke to a security officer, demanding an escort to their car. Amara's pulse still pounded from the chaos at the gate, but knowing that Claire had been fired felt like a lifeline. The nightmare was over. Isaiah was safe in her arms. She could finally breathe. That's what she told herself. Then the door swung open. 2 police officers strode in, their navy uniforms crisp, their faces unreadable. The taller one, a white man with a buzz cut and a jaw like chiseled stone, stepped forward, his badge catching the harsh light. "Amara Jackson?" he asked, his tone flat but carrying a chill. Amara tightened her hold on Isaiah, his warmth grounding her. Her stomach twisted as she adjusted his blanket. "Yes, that's me," she answered, keeping her voice steady despite the unease creeping up her spine. Marcus turned, his broad shoulders squaring as he faced the officers. "What's this about?" he demanded. His brown eyes narrowed. The officer ignored him, pulling a notepad from his pocket, his gaze fixed on Amara as though she were the suspect, not the victim. "We've got a report of assault," the officer said, flipping open the notepad. "Filed by Claire Ramsey. She claims you attacked her on the flight, provoked a confrontation. She has witnesses." Amara's breath caught in her throat, her mind spinning as the words sank in. Assault. Provoked. She had been the one slapped, humiliated, mobbed. Yet here was Claire, twisting the truth once again. Marcus moved closer, his voice rising with anger. "That's a lie. She hit my wife. There's video proof. Hundreds saw it." The second officer, shorter with a patchy beard, smirked faintly, his hand resting on his belt. "We've got a different video," he said, pulling out his phone and tapping the screen. Amara's blood ran cold as the grainy footage played. It showed her in first class, but the angle was skewed, the sound distorted. Claire's slap was missing, replaced by a clip of Amara raising her arm as if she were striking first, while Claire flinched dramatically. The edit was clumsy but convincing, a lie woven with just enough truth to deceive. "That's fake," Amara said, her voice trembling with outrage. "She hit me. I never touched her." The tall officer shrugged, his expression unreadable. "Ramsey's story checks out with her union rep and a few passengers. You're under arrest for assault, ma'am." Before she could protest, the officer grabbed her arm, yanking Isaiah from her grasp. Isaiah's cries pierced the air as the shorter officer took him, passing him to a startled security guard. Marcus lunged forward, fists clenched. "You can't do this. That's my son." The tall cop shoved him back, his hand on his holster. "Step back, sir, or you're next." Amara's world tilted as her wrists were locked in cold steel. The handcuffs snapped shut. She twisted, her eyes locked on Isaiah, his tiny arms flailing in the guard's awkward hold. "Give me my baby," she shouted, her voice cracking with desperation. The cops ignored her, dragging her toward the door as Marcus roared, "This is a setup. I'll bury you for this." Claire watched from outside, half hidden behind a vending machine in the terminal hallway. Her blonde hair was tucked under a baseball cap, her fired status a fresh wound, one she'd turned into fuel. She had filed the police report an hour ago, Ted handing her the doctored video. Her union allies had rushed to create it. Her lips curled into a satisfied grin as Amara stumbled, handcuffed, her cries for Isaiah echoing through the glass. Claire had lost her job, her power stripped by Marcus' decree, but this was better. Jail would break Amara, smear her name beyond repair. The cops, quick to buy Claire's tearful poor white woman act, were nothing more than pawns in a game she refused to lose. Amara's feet dragged against the linoleum as the officers hauled her through the terminal. Passengers gawked. Some whispered, others filmed. The mob from earlier had dispersed, but their hatred lingered in the air like a stench. Claire's lies had thickened the atmosphere. Marcus followed closely behind, his phone pressed to his ear, barking orders to his lawyer, a sharp-edged woman named Evelyn whom he'd hired on the spot. Get her out now. It's a frame-up. Fake video. Biased cops. Sue Ramsey for everything she's got. His voice trembled with rage, but the system didn't bend. The tall officer shoved Amara into a squad car outside, slamming the door shut with a finality that crushed her fleeting victory. Inside the car, Amara's wrists ached against the cuffs, her chest heaving as she fought panic. Isaiah's cries haunted her, a sound she couldn't reach. The shorter cop slid into the driver's seat, a smirk visible in the rearview mirror. Should have stayed in coach, he muttered, his tone dripping with the same racism Claire had wielded. Amara's eyes burned, but she refused to cry. You're wrong, she said, her voice low but fierce. That video's a lie. She hit me. The cop chuckled, starting the engine. Tell it to the judge, lady. Your kind always has excuses. Claire slipped away from the vending machine, her cap pulled low as she melted into the terminal crowd. She texted Ted, her fingers swift. She's arrested. Video worked. Keep pushing. His reply buzzed back. Union's on it. Filing for my reinstatement now. You're golden. Claire's grin widened. Marcus had fired her, but she had flipped the board, turned Amara's escape into a cage. The cop's bias, the doctored footage, the union's muscle. It was a perfect storm, and Claire had summoned it. She imagined Amara in a cell, stripped of her baby, her dignity, her CEO husband powerless against a system rigged to believe Claire's tears over Amara's truth. Marcus stormed back into the security office, slamming his fist on the desk as the guard handed Isaiah to a social worker who had just arrived. Her clipboard clutched like a shield. Where's my wife? He demanded, his voice a growl that made the guard flinch. Police took her. Assault charge. The guard stammered, stepping back. Marcus snatched Isaiah, cradling him, as the social worker protested weakly. She's not taking my son. This is a setup, and I'll prove it. Marcus shot back, his voice full of determination. He dialed Evelyn again, his words sharp. Find that real footage. Get Amara out tonight. Ramsey's behind this. I want her crushed. Amara sat in the squad car, the city lights streaking past in a blur of red and gold. Her mind raced, piecing together Claire's trap, the slap, the smear campaign, the mob, and now this. False charges, a doctored video, cops who saw her skin before her story. Her victory in the terminal had been a mirage, shattered by a legal snare she hadn't seen coming. She clenched her fists, the cuffs biting into her wrists. She whispered to herself, I'll fight this for Isaiah. But as the car turned toward the station, the weight of Claire's retaliation settled in. This wasn't just revenge, it was total destruction. Hey, you incredible viewers, this twist has us in shock. Comment number 1 if you think Claire has gone too far with this fake video. Lock her up instead. Or drop a 2 if you believe Amara's strength will outshine this mess. If you're furious at this injustice, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're in this fight together. Marcus was seething, but could he break this legal trap? What's Claire's next move now that she has Amara in handcuffs? The Los Angeles police station loomed in the dim light of dawn, its concrete walls stark against the hazy skyline as Amara Jackson stepped out of the holding cell. Her wrists were raw from the handcuffs that had bound her overnight. Her 6-month-old son, Isaiah, wasn't with her. Marcus had taken him home after a tense standoff with social services, but the ache of his absence gnawed at her chest. Her cheek still carried the faint purple imprint of Claire Ramsey's slap, a mark now dwarfed by the legal trap that had led her here. Released on bail just hours earlier, thanks to Marcus' lawyer Evelyn cutting through the red tape, Amara clutched her jacket tightly, her dark eyes scanning the street from Marcus' black SUV. She had survived the false assault charge for now, but the air felt heavier, charged with a storm she couldn't yet see. Marcus pulled up, his 6 feet 4 inches frame unfolding from the driver's seat. His face was etched with exhaustion and fury. Isaiah was asleep in the back, strapped into his car seat, his tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. Amara rushed to him, her fingers brushing his soft curls as tears pricked her eyes. "He's okay," Marcus said, his deep voice a lifeline as he pulled her into a brief, fierce hug. "Evelyn's got the real footage queued up. We'll bury Ramsey." Amara nodded, climbing into the passenger seat. Her body trembled from the night in a cell, the cop's sneers still echoing in her ears. She had thought Claire's firing was the end, that the arrest was the worst of it. She was wrong. As the SUV rolled through the city, Amara's phone buzzed, a flood of notifications lighting up the screen. She had barely touched it since the flight. She unlocked it, her breath catching as she saw the headline plastered across every news app. "Black woman attacks heroic attendant. Video evidence." The doctored footage from Claire's police report had exploded online, shared by outlets eager for scandal. The story spun wildly out of control. Amara as the aggressor, Claire as the victimized worker standing up to privilege. Comments below the articles were a cesspool of hate. "She's a thug hiding behind her rich husband. Typical entitlement. Assaulting staff over a baby. Horizon CEO should be ashamed." Amara's hands shook as the phone slipped into her lap. She stared at Marcus. "They're believing her," she whispered, her voice cracking. Marcus gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles whitening. "It's fake. We'll prove it. Evelyn's filing defamation today," he said, but the damage was already speeding ahead, unstoppable. Amara scrolled through the feeds, where Claire's smear campaign from mid-flight had morphed into a national firestorm. Ted, her union rep, posted relentlessly. "Claire Ramsey's a martyr for workers' rights, targeted by a violent passenger. Justice now." The doctored video racked up millions of views, drowning out the original, racist flight attendant-owned clip that had briefly shielded her. By noon, protests erupted outside Horizon Airline's Los Angeles headquarters, a squat glass building shimmering in the heat. A crowd of 50 swelled to 200, Claire's supporters waving signs scrawled with venom. "Justice for Claire. No VIPs over workers. Reinstate Ramsey." Their chanting voices roared, rattling the windows. News vans lined the street, cameras rolling as anchors spun Claire's narrative live. A flight attendant unjustly fired now fights back against a privileged passenger's assault, one reporter said, her blonde hair bobbing as she gestured to the crowd. Amara watched from the SUV parked a block away, her stomach twisting as the mob's hate pulsed through the screen. Marcus held up his tablet at home, and the nightmare deepened. Marcus' phone rang off the hook. His assistant, Leia, from the flight, was on the line, reporting threats pouring in. "We're getting death threats," Marcus said, his voice tight as he paced their living room. Isaiah was asleep in a crib nearby. "They've got our address. Someone said they'll burn the house down." Amara froze, her eyes darting to the windows. The curtains suddenly felt too thin. She had escaped jail, but Claire's lies had turned their sanctuary into a target. The TV blared. A pundit praised Claire. "She's a symbol of resistance against elitism and reverse racism." Amara's skin prickled. The racial undertones were a knife twisting deeper. Meanwhile, Claire basked in her twisted triumph. She sat in a cheap motel room across town, her blonde hair pulled back. Her fired status was now a badge she had turned into gold. Ted had secured her a TV spot, and she strode onto the set of a local news station, her uniform swapped for a modest blouse. Her eyes glistened with rehearsed tears. "I was just doing my job," she said, her voice trembling for effect. "That woman attacked me, and now I'm the villain because her husband's rich. It's not fair." The host nodded sympathetically, the audience clapping as Claire wiped her eyes off camera. Ted texted her. "Unions pressuring Horizon. Temporary reinstatements on the table. You're winning." Amara fought back, her resolve hardening against the onslaught. She grabbed her phone, hands steady now, and recorded a video in their kitchen as morning light streamed through. "This is the truth," she said, her voice raw but fierce, holding up her bruised cheek to the camera. "Claire Ramsey slapped me. She's lying, faking videos, turning people against me because of my skin. I'm not a criminal. I'm a mother, a wife, a passenger who paid for her seat." Tears welled, but she blinked them back, her gaze piercing. I need you to see me. She posted the video, her heart pounding as it uploaded, praying it would cut through the noise. The video gained traction, 10,000 views, then 50,000, with some allies emerging in the comments. She's telling the truth. Claire's the liar. Look at that bruise. But Claire's machine was stronger. Her TV appearance aired nationwide, and her reinstatement was announced live. Horizons Union has negotiated Claire Ramsey's return, pending investigation, the news anchor reported. Amara's phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the counter, as Marcus cursed, slamming his fist onto the table. They can't do this, he growled, dialing Evelyn. She's fired. I made it clear. Evelyn's voice crackled through the phone. The union's got leverage. We're fighting it, but the public's buying her story. Amara sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. She had walked out of jail thinking she'd won. That Marcus power and the real footage would end it. Now Claire was back. Her lies were a tidal wave drowning Amara's truth. The protests grew louder. A news helicopter buzzed overhead, its shadow flickering across the living room. Threatening voicemails piled up. You're dead. You hear me? Keep your brat out of our skies. Amara's chest tightened as her breath became shallow. She glanced at Isaiah's crib. Her family was under siege. The nation's outrage had become a weapon Claire wielded with pleasure. Claire watched the helicopter from her motel window, her smirk widening as Ted called. You're back on payroll tomorrow, he said, his voice smug. They're eating it up. She's finished. Claire hung up, her eyes gleaming with malice. Amara's video was just a pebble against her avalanche. Claire had turned suspension into martyrdom, firing into a comeback, and now she would bury Amara under the weight of a country ready to hate her. The motel TV replayed Claire's interview, her crocodile tears a masterpiece. She had won this round, and the next blow would be even harder. Amara stood, her legs trembling but her spine straight. She wouldn't break. She grabbed her phone again, refreshing her video. 70,000 views now. A small army was forming. We've got people, she said to Marcus, her voice firm despite the fear. They see me. Marcus nodded, his jaw set. Evelyn suing the union, Claire, the station, everyone. We'll fight. But as the chopper's roar faded, a brick crashed through their window, glass shattering across the floor. A note was tied to it. Get out. Amara's scream woke Isaiah. His cries mingled with hers as the backlash turned deadly. 1 month after the Horizon Airlines flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles, Amara Jackson stood in a Los Angeles courthouse. Her 6-month-old son, Isaiah, was safe at home with Marcus' sister. A small mercy in the chaos that had consumed her life. The courtroom buzzed with restless energy. Its wooden benches were packed with reporters, Claire Ramsey's supporters, and a few of Amara's allies. Their whispers hummed beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. Amara's cheek had healed. The bruise from Claire's slap had faded to a faint shadow, but the weight of the false assault charges pressed down harder than ever. She wore a navy blazer, her hair pulled back, and her dark eyes were steady as she faced the judge's bench. Marcus sat behind her, his 6 feet 4 inches frame tense. His deep voice was silent, but his presence was a rock she clung to. She had thought the threats, the brick through her window, were the worst. Today would prove her wrong. The judge, a grizzled white man named Harold Grayson, banged his gavel, his jowls quivering as he glared over his glasses. His reputation as a hardliner with a history of bias against minorities hung over the room like a storm cloud. Order, he barked, his voice gravelly, silencing the crowd. Amara's lawyer, Evelyn, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a steel-gray bob, stood beside her. Her briefcase was stuffed with evidence Marcus had fought to secure. Across the aisle, Claire Ramsey sat at the prosecution table, her blonde hair neatly pinned. Her modest gray dress was a stark contrast to her fired flight attendant uniform. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, her face a mask of victimhood as Ted. Her union rep turned legal bulldog, whispered in her ear. The trial began. The assault case Claire had fabricated was now a public spectacle. The prosecutor, a wiry man with a nasal voice, strode forward holding up a tablet with the doctored video. On March 19th, Amara Jackson attacked Claire Ramsey, a dedicated flight attendant in first class, he declared, pressing play. The grainy footage rolled. Amara's arm raised, Claire flinching. The slap was erased by clever edits. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Claire's supporters nodded smugly, their protest signs tucked under their seats. Amara clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms as the lie played out. "That's not what happened," she whispered to Evelyn, her voice trembling with fury. Claire took the stand next, her performance Oscar-worthy. She clutched the tissue, her voice quivering as she leaned into the microphone. "I was just doing my job, keeping first class peaceful." She came at me, yelling, swinging her arm. I feared for my life. Tears spilled down her cheeks, her pale eyes wide with rehearsed terror. Ted patted her shoulder, his grin barely concealed as the jury, mostly white, their faces stern, leaned forward, eating it up. Judge Grayson nodded slightly, his pen scratching notes. His bias was a silent tilt in Claire's favor. Amara's stomach twisted. Her breath was shallow as she watched the room turn against her. She had survived jail, the mob, and the threats, but this was a guillotine poised to drop. Evelyn rose, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Objection, Your Honor. That video's been manipulated. We have the original footage proving Ms. Ramsey assaulted my client." She held up a USB drive, her posture unyielding, but Grayson's eyes narrowed, his gavel hovering. "Where's this alleged evidence?" he asked. He snapped, his tone dripping with skepticism. Evelyn stepped forward, inserting the drive into the courtroom system, but the screen flickered before going black. "Technical difficulties," a clerk muttered, fumbling with cables. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Her eyes darted to Marcus, who gripped the bench rail, his knuckles turning white. "This is sabotage," he hissed, loud enough for the jury to hear. The real footage, security cam proof of Claire's slap, had vanished. A glitch too convenient to be a coincidence. Claire's smirk briefly flickered as she wiped her eyes. Her allies in the union were likely behind the tampering. The prosecutor seized the moment, waving the USB away. "No evidence, no credibility. The defendant's stalling," he declared. Grayson slammed his gavel again, his voice booming. "Enough! We proceed with what's before us." Amara's heart sank, her mind racing. The jury's faces hardened, their doubt shifting to conviction as Claire's sobs filled the silence. She was doomed. Jail loomed. Her name was now a punching bag for a nation Claire had turned against her. Marcus couldn't take it. He surged to his feet, his deep voice thundering through the courtroom. "This is a sham. That judge is corrupt. Ramsey's lying, and you're letting her." The gallery erupted. Claire's supporters shouted, "Sit down," while reporters scribbled furiously. Grayson's face reddened, his gavel slamming like a gunshot. "Order. Mr. Ellison, you're in contempt," he snapped. Bailiffs moved toward Marcus, but his outburst cracked the room's tension. A juror, a young black woman in the back row, frowned. Her eyes flickered toward Amara with a hint of doubt. Another, an older man, shifted uncomfortably, his pen pausing. Amara felt a spark of hope, her breath steadying as Evelyn whispered, "He's swaying them. We've got a shot." Claire's mask slipped for a brief moment. Her eyes narrowed as Marcus sat back down, his glare locked on her. She'd played the victim flawlessly, but his rage had pierced her act. Ted leaned over, his voice urgent. "Stick to the script. We've got this." Claire nodded, dabbing her eyes again, but the shift in the jury unnerved her. She had banked on Grayson's bias, the missing footage, and the public's hate. Yet Amara's quiet strength and Marcus' defiance were chipping away at her wall. The prosecutor called a recess. The courtroom emptied as whispers swirled. Amara turned to Evelyn, her voice low. "We're losing, aren't we?" Evelyn shook her head, her eyes fierce. "Not yet. Marcus bought us time. We'll find that footage." Outside, Claire's next strike landed. Ted leaked Amara's home address on X, a move planned during her TV comeback. "Here's where the victim hides," he posted, the address glowing in bold. Within hours, a racist mob formed outside Amara's suburban home. Their chants were audible through the courthouse TV as the news broke during the recess. "Get out, thug!" they screamed, pounding on the door where Marcus' sister had barricaded herself with Isaiah. Amara's phone buzzed with a frantic call from her sister-in-law, her voice shaking. "They're here, Amara. What do I do?" Amara's knees buckled, Marcus catching her as she gasped. "They won't stop." Claire slipped out of the courtroom, her gray dress swishing as she joined Ted in the hallway. Her smirk returned. "She's done," she said, her voice cold with triumph. "Jail or not, that mob will finish her." Ted grinned, his phone pinging with updates. "Union's got Grayson in their pocket. Footage stays gone. You're golden." Claire's eyes glinted. Her victory swelled. She turned Amara's trial into a circus, her lies a noose tightening with every shout from the mob outside Amara's home. The courthouse doors swung shut as the trial resumed, but Claire knew she had already won this round, or so she thought. Amara sat back at the defense table, her hands trembling as Marcus squeezed her shoulder. His voice was a low growl. "We'll get through this." Evelyn was digging. The courtroom filled again. Grayson's gavel banged as the prosecutor smirked, ready to seal her fate. The mob's chants echoed faintly through the walls, a reminder of Claire's reach. Amara's near win, Marcus' outburst swaying some jurors, faded under the weight of missing evidence and a judge itching to convict. She had thought jail was the endgame. Proving Claire's slap would free her. But now, with her family under siege and the courtroom stacked against her, she saw the truth. Claire's hate was a hydra, growing uglier with every cut. Night fell over Amara Jackson's suburban Los Angeles home. The quiet street was bathed in the faint glow of streetlights, with shadows stretching long and menacing across her lawn. Inside, Amara barricaded herself in the bathroom, her 6-month-old son Isaiah clutched tight against her chest. His soft whimpers were muffled by her trembling hand. Marcus was still at the courthouse, fighting the trial's chaos with Evelyn, leaving Amara alone with her sister-in-law Kesha, who had fled to a neighbor's house with her own kids after the mob arrived. The courtroom had been a battlefield, but this was war. Claire Ramsey's leak of Amara's address had unleashed a racist horde, and now they were here, pounding at her door. Amara had thought Marcus' outburst had given her a chance. She was wrong. The mob outside swelled to 20. Their voices were a guttural roar that shook the walls. "Get out! You don't belong here!" a man bellowed, his words slurred with rage as he hurled a rock through the living room window. Glass shattered, the crash echoing like gunfire. Amara flinched, her back pressed against the bathroom door. Spray paint hissed, red streaks spelling slurs across her white siding. "Thug! Welfare trash!" The crowd, fueled by Claire's leak and the trial's lies, surged forward, fists banging on the wood, boots kicking at the frame. A woman screeched, "You attacked Claire! Pay for it!" Her voice pierced the night as another brick sailed through, splintering the coffee table Amara had saved months to buy. Amara's heart hammered. Her breath was shallow as she fumbled for her phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "Help us! They're breaking in. Please, hurry!" she pleaded, her voice cracking as Isaiah wailed. His tiny body trembled against hers. The operator's response was curt and detached. "We've got a call about a protest. Units are busy. Stay calm." The line clicked dead. Amara's stomach dropped. Protest? This was an assault, a lynching in the making, and the cops, echoing the bias that had imprisoned her, dismissed it. She slid to the floor, the cold tile biting against her legs as she rocked Isaiah, whispering, "Shoo, baby, we'll be okay," though the lie tasted bitter on her tongue. Outside, the mob escalated. A Molotov cocktail arced through the broken window, flames licking the curtains as smoke billowed into the house. Amara's eyes widened, her pulse racing as the acrid burn filled her nostrils. She grabbed a towel, soaking it in the sink and pressing it to Isaiah's face, coughing as the haze thickened. The front door groaned under a battering ram, someone having brought tools, their intent clear. They wouldn't stop until she was gone. "Burn it down!" a man shouted, his silhouette looming against the flickering firelight. Amara's mind raced, the trial fading to a distant nightmare. Survival was all that mattered now. Claire watched from a safe distance, parked in a rental car 2 blocks away. Her blonde hair was hidden under a hoodie, her pale eyes glinting with malicious glee. The news played on her phone, a live feed of the mob's chaos, reporters framing it as outrage over the Jackson trial. She smirked, texting Ted, "They're at her house. She's finished." His reply buzzed, "Perfect. Grayson's leaning our way. You're back tomorrow." Claire leaned back, the glow of flames reflecting in her windshield. She'd lost her job, facing suspension. But this, Amara's home in ashes, her life in ruins, was sweeter than any reinstatement. She'd broken her, and the mob was her fist. Amara fought back, her instincts kicking in. She crawled to the bathroom window, prying it open with one hand, the other clutching Isaiah. Smoke stung her eyes, but she spotted a shed in the backyard, a slim chance at safety. She hoisted herself out, dropping 6 feet to the grass. Her knees buckled as she landed, Isaiah's cries sharpening, but she stumbled forward. The mob roared, deafening as they breached the front door, their boots stomping through her burning home. As she reached the shed, she slipped inside, barricading the door with a rusty shovel. Her breath was ragged as she pulled out her phone again. She hit record, live streaming to X. Her voice trembled but was fierce. "This is Amara Jackson. They're burning my house because of Claire Ramsey's lies. Look at this, my son's here. We're trapped." She panned the camera, smoke curling through the shed's cracks. Isaiah's wails were a haunting soundtrack. She posted it, her hands shaking as the views climbed. 5,000, 10,000, outrage flooding the comments. "This is insane. Claire's a monster. Save her." Amara's chest heaved, hope flickering as strangers rallied. But the mob's shouts grew louder, their flashlights sliced through the dark. "She's out back," a woman yelled, and footsteps thudded toward the shed. The police finally arrived, 2 squad cars screeching to a halt, but their response twisted Amara's fleeting relief into dread. For officers stepped out, their faces stern, their hands resting on their holsters as they approached. Not the mob, but her. "Amara Jackson," one called, his voice sharp as he kicked the shed door open, flashlight blinding her. "You're under arrest for inciting a riot." Amara's jaw dropped, her phone still streaming as she clutched Isaiah. "What? They attacked me?" she shouted. But the officer grabbed her arm, yanking her up. The live stream captured his sneer. "Tell it to the judge, troublemaker," he snapped, cuffing her as the mob cheered. Flames roared behind them. Claire's grin widened in her car, the news feed cutting to Amara's arrest. The anchor's voice was grim. Jackson apprehended after inciting violence at her residence. Claire laughed, a cold, triumphant sound, as Ted texted, "Genius. She's toast." She'd turned Amara's home into a war zone, her live stream into a noose, and the cops, primed by her narrative, into her executioners. The mob dispersed, their work done, leaving Amara's house a smoldering ruin. Claire started her engine, driving off into the night, her victory ablaze, stoked to perfection. Amara was broken, arrested again, her family shattered. She'd never recover. Amara sat in the squad car, cuffs biting into her wrists, Isaiah screaming in a social worker's arms nearby. Her live stream had hit 50,000 views, outrage spreading, but it hadn't saved her. The officer smirked in the front seat, muttering, "Should have stayed quiet." Amara's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. Her mind raced. She'd escaped the flames, turned the mob's attack into a plea for help, but Claire's trap had snapped shut. The trial, the threats, the fire, all led to this. A second arrest that crushed her courtroom hope. As the car pulled away, her home a charred skeleton against the sky, she whispered, "I won't stop," a vow against the darkness swallowing her. Hey, you fierce viewers, this is next level madness. Comment number 1 if you think Claire's mob deserves jail time for torching Amara's life. Justice can't wait. Or drop a 2 if you believe Amara's livestream will turn the tide against this hate. If you're screaming at this outrage like we are, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit notifications. We're riding the storm with you. Amara's down but not out. Can her voice break through the ashes? Or will Claire's fire burn her to the ground? The Los Angeles County Jail swallowed Amara Jackson whole the morning after her home burned. Its gray walls closed in as she stumbled through intake. Her wrists chafed raw from the handcuffs that had bound her during the mob's attack. Her 6-month-old son, Isaiah, was gone, taken by Child Protective Services after her arrest for inciting a riot. A charge born from Claire Ramsey's twisted lies and the cops' refusal to see her as a victim. Her navy blazer replaced by an orange jumpsuit, her hair tangled from the night's chaos, and her dark eyes hollow but unyielding. She had live-streamed the invasion, turning the mob's hatred into a cry for help, and had thought that the world's outrage would save her. But now, locked in a cell, she faced a hell she hadn't imagined. The holding area reeked of bleach and despair, its concrete floor cold under her bare feet as the guards shoved her forward. 2 officers, both white, loomed over her, their badges gleaming in the dim light. The taller one, a bulky man with a shaved head, sneered as he tossed her a thin blanket. "You don't belong anywhere, do you?" he said, his voice thick with the same contempt Claire had spat on the plane. The shorter guard, wiry with a scar across his cheek, chuckled, leaning close. "Ramsey's a hero around here. You're just trash." Amara's stomach twisted, her breath shallow as she clutched the blanket, refusing to let their words break her. She was shoved into a cell block, the iron bars clanging shut behind her, locking her in with a dozen other women. The air buzzed with tension, eyes tracking her every movement. A group of inmates, their faces hardened by time, whispered as she passed. Their voices were low but venomous. "That's her. The one who attacked Claire," one muttered, her tattooed arm flexing as she cracked her knuckles. Amara's livestream had gone viral, over 100,000 views now, but here, Claire's narrative ruled. The guards had spread it, their bias a spark that ignited the cell block's views. Amara kept her head high, her jaw set, but fear coiled tightly in her chest. The attack came at dusk, the cell block lights flickering as dinner trays clattered. 3 inmates cornered her near the bunks, their movements swift and rehearsed. The leader, a stocky woman with a shaved head and a scar slicing her brow, grabbed Amara's arm, twisting it painfully. "Claire's got friends here," she hissed, her breath hot against Amara's face. "You're done." A second woman, lanky with matted hair, swung a fist, catching Amara's jaw with a crack that sent her reeling. The third, wiry and silent, kicked her ribs, the pain exploding as Amara crumpled. Her gasps were drowned by their grunts. The guards watched from the catwalk, their radios silent, their smirks visible through the bars. Amara curled into a ball, protecting her core as the blows rained down. Her mind screamed for Isaiah, for Marcus, for air. Blood trickled from her lip, her vision blurring, but she wouldn't beg. She'd survived the slap, the mob, the fire. This wouldn't break her either. The leader raised a shank, a jagged metal shard gleaming in the dim light, but a shout stopped her. "Enough!" Tara, a wiry black inmate with gray streaks in her braids, shoved through, her eyes blazing. "Back off. She ain't your enemy." The attackers hesitated. Tara's presence was a shield. The women slunk away, muttering curses as the guards finally barked. "Break it up." Tara helped Amara up, her grip firm but gentle. Her voice was low. "I saw your live stream. You're not what they say." Amara wiped blood from her mouth, her ribs throbbing, and nodded. Gratitude swelled despite the pain. "Thank you," she rasped, leaning against the bunk as Tara handed her a rag. "They're Claire's dogs." The guards egged them on. Amara's eyes narrowed, her mind sharpening through the haze. Tara was an ally, a crack in this prison's wall. She'd fight from here somehow. She whispered, "I need to get word out." Tara grinned, slipping her a pencil stub. "Write it. I'll smuggle it outside."
Markus war etwa.
He stormed into Horizon Airlines HQ. His 6 feet 4 inches frame a thundercloud as he slammed files onto his desk. His deep voice barked orders to Evelyn over the phone. "She's in jail again. CPS took Isaiah. Find that footage now." Evelyn's reply crackled. "Working on it. Courthouse glitch wasn't random. Claire's union's dirty. I've got a lead." Marcus paced, his hands trembling as he dialed Kesha, who'd fled with Isaiah to a safe house. "He's okay," she said, her voice tight. "But they're hunting us." Marcus' jaw clenched, his rage a furnace. Claire had turned his family into prey, and he'd burn her world to ash for it. In her motel room, Claire gloated. The news is replaying Amara's arrest. Her reinstatement is now official. She lounged on the bed, her blonde hair loose, her eyes gleaming as Ted called. "You're back tomorrow. The union's got Grayson locked. She's facing years." Claire laughed, a sharp, victorious sound. "Good. She's where she belongs." But then Ted's tone shifted. "Her live stream's at 200,000 views. People are pissed." Claire's smirk faltered. Her fingers tightened on the phone. She refreshed X. Amara's plea from the shed was trending. Cracks were forming in her narrative. She texted a guard contact. "Plant drugs on her. Life sentence now." Amara scribbled a note in the cell, her pencil shaking as Tara hovered, watching for guards.
"Markus, I'm alive."
Claire's got the jail rigged. Attacks, drugs next. "Get me out." She folded it tightly. Tara slipped it into her sock, her nod firm. "I'll get it to the gate. Hang on." Amara leaned back, her body bruised, her spirit battered but unbroken. The live stream had sparked hope. Tara's help was a lifeline. She'd thought the mob was Claire's final blow, that her arrest was the end. Now locked in this hell, she saw the depth of Claire's hate. A machine grinding her down, piece by piece. The cell block quieted, the night stretching long as Amara lay on her bunk, pain pulsing through her ribs. The guards' footsteps echoed, their whispers carrying Claire's name like a prayer. Tara returned, her face grim. "It's out. Your man will get it." Amara exhaled, a flicker of relief amid the nightmare. But then the tall guard appeared, his shaved head gleaming as he tossed a baggie of white powder onto her bunk. "Found this on you," he sneered, his radio crackling as he called it in. "Drug possession. Add it to her sheet." Amara's eyes widened, her voice rising. "That's not mine." He laughed, slamming the cell door. "Prove it, princess." Claire's bribe had landed the guard, her puppet in a play to bury Amara for life. The cell block stirred. Inmates watched as Amara stood, the baggie a death sentence in her hands. She tossed it back, her voice steady. "You won't win this." The guard smirked, walking off. But Tara's eyes met hers, a silent vow to fight. Amara's live stream had rallied strangers. Marcus was closing in. Yet here, in this cage, Claire's claws sank deeper. The trial continued. The fire, the arrest. Nothing compared to this prison hell, a nightmare she'd barely survived, with worse looming on the horizon. 2 days after Amara Jackson's jail nightmare began, the Los Angeles County Jail buzzed with a restless hum. Its gray corridors echoed with the clatter of trays and the shouts of inmates. Amara sat on her bunk, her 6-month-old son Isaiah still lost to CPS, her bruised body aching from the inmate attack. Her orange jumpsuit was stained with dried blood. The baggie of drugs Claire Ramsey's guard had planted lay confiscated, a life sentence looming over her like a guillotine. Tara, her wiry ally with gray-streaked braids, hovered nearby, her eyes scanning the cell block for threats. Amara's live stream plea from the shed had hit 300,000 views, a distant spark of hope. But here, in this concrete hell, Claire's claws held tight. She had thought Tara's smuggled note would reach Marcus, but she was about to find out. Outside, Marcus Ellison stormed through Horizon Airlines HQ. His 6 feet 4 inches frame a whirlwind of rage as he clutched Tara's note, its pencil scrawl a lifeline from Amara.
"Markus, I'm alive."
Claire's got the jail rigged. Attacks, drugs next. Get me out. His deep voice boomed across the sleek office. His dark suit creased from sleepless nights. Evelyn, it's confirmed. Claire bribed a guard. Drugs planted. Shut this down now. Evelyn, his sharp-eyed lawyer, stood at her desk, her phone pressed to her ear. Her steel-gray bob glinted under the lights. Got a whistleblower. Union insider. The footage resurfaced too. We're moving, she said, her tone a blade cutting through the chaos. Marcus acted swiftly, his fury driving him. He called a press conference, his towering presence dominating the HQ lobby as cameras flashed, reporters jostling for sound bites. Claire Ramsey's finished, he declared, his voice a thunderclap. She assaulted my wife, framed her, burned our home, and now she's rigging jail. I'm shutting her union contract down. Every ally she's got at Horizon is fired, effective immediately. The room erupted, gasps and murmurs rippling as he held up the real footage. HD security cam proof of Claire's slap, recovered from a backup Evelyn's team had unearthed. The video played on a giant screen. Amara's stunned face clear, Claire's hand striking with vicious intent. The tide turned, gasps turning to outrage. Claire, reinstated, strutted into Horizon's LAX crew lounge that morning. Her blonde hair pinned tight, her uniform crisp again. She'd gloated in her motel. Her TV interviews had been a victory lap. Her drug plant, a masterstroke. But the lounge TV blared Marcus's conference, her smirk vanishing as his words sank in. Fired, she whispered, her pale hands trembling as coworkers stared. Some backing away, others glaring. Ted burst in, his wiry frame sweating, his phone buzzing with union panic. They've got the footage. Claire's contract's toast. Grayson's wavering, he said. Her stomach dropped, her eyes darting to the screen as Amara's slap replayed. Her lie exposed in brutal clarity. In jail, Amara felt the shift. The tall guard with the shaved head stormed past her cell. His face red, his radio crackling with orders. Ramsey's out. Ellison's cleaning house. A voice snapped through the static. The inmates who'd attacked her exchanged uneasy glances, their bravado fading. Tara grinned, her voice low. Your man's a beast. The note worked. Amara's chest swelled, her bruises pulsing with renewed hope. The cell block buzzed, guards scrambling. The planted drug was suddenly a liability. Evelyn's whistleblower had flipped, naming Claire's guard, and the real footage hit X. 500,000 views in hours, drowning Claire's doctored lie with truth. The courthouse reconvened that afternoon. Judge Grayson's jowls quivered as Evelyn strode in. The HD footage loaded on a new drive. Your Honor, this proves my client's innocence, she said, her voice steel as the slap played. Claire's hand unmistakable. Grayson's bias cracked. His pen stilled as the jury gasped. The young black woman nodded fiercely. The older man's face paled. The prosecutor stammered. This changes nothing. But his voice faltered. Grayson banged his gavel, his tone grudging. Charges dismissed. Jackson's free. Amara's cuffs clicked off her wrists, raw but her spirit soaring as she walked out, the jail doors slamming shut behind her. Marcus met her at the gate, his arms engulfing her. Isaiah nestled in a carrier against his chest. You're home, he said, his deep voice breaking as she kissed Isaiah's forehead, tears spilling free. Crowds cheered beyond the fence. Her live stream army chanted her name, signs waving. Amara's truth won. She'd survived Claire's hell. Slap, fire, jail, drugs, and emerged. Her bruises, a badge of resilience. The footage, Marcus's purge, Tara's note. It had all collided to break Claire's grip. Amara breathed deep, the air sweet with freedom. She believed the nightmare was over. But Claire wouldn't quit. Holed up in her motel, her reinstatement revoked, her union gutted, Claire raged. Her blonde hair wild as she scrolled X. The real footage, a viral dagger in her gut. Ted called, his voice frantic. You're done, Claire. Ellison's untouchable now. She slammed the phone down, her eyes burning with defiance. She dialed a new number. A gravelly voice answered. "Yeah, it's Ramsey," she hissed. "Kill her tonight. I'll pay double." The hitman grunted. "Consider it done." Claire smirked, her loss a spark for a deadlier fire. Amara's release wasn't the end. It was her next target. That night, Amara stood in a hotel room Marcus had secured. Their burned home, a memory they couldn't face. Isaiah slept in a safe crib, his tiny breaths calming her as she showered, washing jail's filth away. Marcus paced the hall. His phone buzzed with Evelyn's updates. "Claire's done. Union's dissolved. She's got nothing left." He exhaled, joining Amara, his hand brushing her shoulder. "We won," he said softly. She nodded, her wet hair dripping. Relief washed over her like the water. The trial, the mob, the cell, all faded under this fragile moment of peace. Then it happened. A blast rocked the parking lot. The hotel window shattered as Amara's car exploded, flames licking the night sky. She screamed, diving for Isaiah as Marcus yanked them behind the bed, glass raining around them. The hitman, a shadow in a black jacket, slipped away, his silenced pistol still warm from a warning shot through the windshield. Amara's heart pounded. Her victory, torched in an instant. Claire's voice echoed in her mind. Her motel rant, her unyielding hate. The jail had been a cage, but this was a death sentence. Marcus grabbed his phone, dialing 911 as smoke curled through the room. His voice a roar. Explosion outside. "Get here now." Amara clutched Isaiah, her bruises flaring as she crawled toward the door, the heat seeping in. The cheers from her release faded, replaced by sirens wailing in the distance. Claire had lost everything. Her job, her union, the trial. But she'd struck back. Her hitman, a phantom, turned Amara's freedom into ash. The hotel shook, guests screaming in the halls, and Amara's eyes met Marcus's. Her voice was a whisper. "She won't stop." He nodded, his jaw set, knowing the war wasn't over. Midnight draped Los Angeles in a shroud of haze, the hotel parking lot ablaze. Amara Jackson crouched behind the bed, her 6-month-old son, Isaiah, clutched tightly against her chest. The explosion of her car had shattered the window, glass shards glinting like jagged stars across the carpet. The acrid stench of gasoline and smoke flooded the room. Marcus Ellison, her towering husband, shielded them, his 6 feet 4 inches frame taut with fury as he scanned the wreckage outside. His deep voice a low growl. "Stay down, Amara." Her bruises from jail throbbed, her orange jumpsuit swapped for a hotel robe, but her dark eyes burned with resolve. Claire Ramsey's hitman had struck, turning her release into a death trap. She wouldn't let it end here. Flames roared in the lot below, the mangled husk of Amara's sedan a fiery beacon as hotel guests screamed, fleeing down hallways clogged with panic. Sirens wailed in the distance, too far to save them now. A shadow moved outside, a man in a black jacket, the hitman Claire had hired. His silenced pistol glinted as he crept toward the hotel stairwell. Amara's heart pounded, her breath shallow, as she whispered to Isaiah, "Shoo, baby, we're okay." His whimpers were soft against her racing pulse. Marcus grabbed a lamp, yanking its cord free, his hand steady despite the chaos. "He's coming up," he said, his tone lethal, ready to fight. Amara's mind raced, survival instincts kicking in. She'd escaped jail, the mob, the fire. This was her stand. She spotted the neighbor's shed key on the dresser, a relic from their burned home. She'd kept it in her bag. "The shed," she hissed, pointing to the window facing the lot's edge, where a maintenance shed stood 50 feet away, a slim refuge. Marcus nodded, jaw set, and smashed the remaining glass with the lamp base, clearing a path. "Go. I'll hold him off." His eyes locked with hers, a silent vow. Amara kissed Isaiah's forehead. Her legs trembled, but her will was iron. She climbed out, dropping to the grass with a thud that jarred her ribs. The hitman reached the 3rd-floor hallway, his boots silent on the carpet, his pistol raised as he scanned room numbers. Marcus waited inside, lamp in hand, his breath steady. The door creaked open. The hitman stepped in, eyes narrowing. Marcus swung the heavy base, cracking it against the man's skull with a sickening crunch. The gun clattered, firing a muted shot into the wall as the hitman staggered, blood trickling from his temple. Marcus lunged, tackling him. His fists pounded as the man fought back. A knife flashed from his sleeve, slicing Marcus's arm with a wet rip. Amara stumbled across the lot, Isaiah's weight slowing her as flames cast wild shadows around her. The hitman's grunts echoed from above. Marcus's roar, a lifeline she clung to. She reached the shed, kicking the door open. Its rusty hinges groaned as she slipped inside. Tools littered the floor, shovels, a crowbar, a coil of rope. Her eyes darted for a weapon. She grabbed the crowbar, her hands slick with sweat, and wedged it against the door, barricading it as footsteps thudded closer. The hitman had broken free, shoving Marcus aside. His knife dripping as he leapt from the window, landing with a roll in the gravel below. Claire watched from a safe house across town, a dingy apartment she'd rented with her last cash. Her blonde hair tangled, her pale face lit by her phone's glow. The hitman's text buzzed. "Car's gone. She's in the shed." Her lips curled into a hiss. Finish her. She'd lost her job, her union, her trial, but Amara's death would be her win. The news looped the explosion, framing it as unrelated vandalism, but Claire knew better. Her manifesto, a racist screed she'd drafted to rally her followers, sat ready on X, a final blow to ignite chaos. If the hitman failed, she wouldn't accept defeat. Not yet. Amara pressed against the shed wall, Isaiah's cries hushed by her trembling hand as the hitman prowled outside, his silhouette a specter in the firelight. He kicked the door. The crowbar bent but held. His growl was audible through the wood. "Come out or I burn it down," he snarled, his knife scraping the frame. Amara's mind flashed jail, the mob, the planted drugs. She'd outsmarted worse. She grabbed the rope, looping it around a ceiling beam and tying a slip knot. Her hands swift despite the fear. She set Isaiah in a corner, whispering, "Stay, baby." She climbed, perching above the door as the hitman kicked again. The crowbar snapped. The door burst open. The hitman lunged in, his pistol sweeping the dark. Amara dropped the rope, snapping it tight around his neck as she yanked her weight, pulling him off balance. He choked, flailing, the gun firing wild into the ceiling. She swung the crowbar, cracking his wrist with a bone-shattering thud. The pistol fell, skittering across the floor. She kicked it away, her breath ragged as he clawed at the rope. Marcus staggered into the lot, blood dripping from his arm, and roared, "Amara!" He charged at the shed, tackling the hitman as the rope loosened, his fists pounding until the man went limp, unconscious in the dirt. Amara grabbed Isaiah, her knees buckling as Marcus dragged the hitman clear, binding his hands with the rope. Sirens screamed, getting closer. Red and blue lights flashed as police swarmed the lot, their shouts cutting through the smoke. "Hands up!" an officer barked, but Marcus stood firm, his voice steady. "He attacked us, hired by Claire Ramsey. Check him." The hitman groaned, his jacket pocket spilling a burner phone, with Claire's number glowing on the screen. Amara's live stream from jail had hit 1 million views. Her shed plea was trending, and now this, captured live by a guest's phone from a hotel window. The chase went viral, racking up 200,000 views in minutes. Claire's Safe House TV blared the update, her smirk vanishing as the anchor reported, "Suspect apprehended in hotel explosion, linked to Claire Ramsey." She raged, hurling her phone at the wall. The screen shattered as her manifesto uploaded, a desperate screed. "Amara Jackson's a plague. Rise up, take her down." It hit X, igniting racist replies, but the tide was shifting. Her hitman's failure had exposed her lies, her power crumbling. Claire grabbed a bag and fled into the night, her vengeance a wildfire she couldn't control. Amara had survived, turning her trap into triumph. But Claire's parting shot promised more. Amara sank to the grass, Isaiah safe in her arms, Marcus' bloodied hand on her shoulder as cops secured the hitman. Her live streams echoed online, comments flooding in. She's a warrior. Claire's done. The hotel burned behind them, guests safe but shaken. The lot was a war zone of twisted metal and ash. She had outsmarted the hitman. Marcus' fight had bought her time. Yet Claire's manifesto loomed, a shadow over her fragile victory. "She's not finished," Amara whispered, her voice hoarse. Marcus nodded, his eyes dark. "Neither are we." 1 week after the hotel explosion, Amara Jackson stood in a sleek Los Angeles news studio, her 6-month-old son Isaiah cradled in her arms. His soft coos a quiet anchor amid the storm she had weathered. The studio lights blazed, casting her bruised but unbowed figure against a backdrop of the Horizon Airlines logo, a symbol she'd once tied only to Marcus. Her dark hair was pulled back, her navy dress crisp, her eyes fierce as she faced a swarm of reporters. Their cameras rolled, microphones thrust forward. Marcus Ellison, her towering husband, stood beside her, his 6 feet 4 inches frame steady, his arm bandaged from the hitman's knife. The world watched her live streams from the shed and jail, now at 5 million views. Claire Ramsey's manifesto was a viral stain they'd come to erase. Amara had survived. Slap, fire, jail, assassination. But this was her reckoning. The press conference buzzed. A week of chaos distilled into this moment. Claire's hitman sat in custody, his burner phone linking her to the attack. Her safe house had been raided hours after she fled. Amara's voice cut through the hum, steady and raw. "Claire Ramsey tried to destroy me," she said, her gaze piercing the lenses. "She slapped me, framed me, burned my home, sent a killer after my family. All because I dared to sit in first class with my son. She turned hate into a weapon. But I'm still here." The room hushed, reporters scribbling as she held up a tablet. Claire's manifesto glowed on the screen, a screed of racist venom that had ignited her followers. Now backfiring as X flagged it, accounts banned in droves. Claire's empire of hate had collapsed. Her arrest unfolded live on every network. She'd been caught in a sting, lured to a gas station by an undercover cop posing as a supporter. Her blonde hair matted, her pale face twisted with fury as cuffs snapped shut. "You'll never belong," she screamed, her voice shrill as officers dragged her to a squad car, her manifesto's echoes drowned by boos from a crowd that had once cheered her. The hitman's confession sealed her fate. Attempted murder, conspiracy, bribery charges piling high as Ted. Her union rep flipped, spilling secrets to save himself. Claire's reign was ash, her power stripped bare. Amara's chest swelled, her bruises a testament to her fight. As she continued, her voice rising. "She thought she could break me, turn the world against me. But you saw me, millions of you. You shared my truth, and it stopped her." The reporters nodded, some clapping, their pens pausing as her words sank in. Marcus squeezed her shoulder, his deep voice silent but his presence a fortress. The studio hummed with vindication. Her journey from victim to survivor, a story they couldn't resist. She'd outsmarted Claire at every turn. Live streams, Tara's note, the shed trap. And now she stood tall, the mob's fire a memory she turned into strength. Then came the twist. Marcus stepped forward, his bandaged arm raised. His voice, a deep rumble, silenced the room. "I've run Horizon Airlines long enough," he said, his brown eyes locking with Amara's. "I'm stepping down, effective today. My wife, Amara Jackson, is your new CEO." The studio erupted, gasps and shouts colliding as cameras flashed. Reporters scrambled to process the bombshell. Amara's jaw dropped, her breath catching as she stared at him, Isaiah squirming in her stunned grip. "Marcus, what?" she whispered, but he smiled, his hand firm on hers. "You've earned it. You're the heart of this fight." The room spun as Amara's mind reeled. Zio, not just a survivor, but the power behind Horizon. A throne Claire had coveted and lost. Reporters surged, questions flying. "Why now? What's your plan?" But Marcus waved them off, his voice steady. "She's faced hell and won. No one's better to lead." Amara's eyes welled, her battered body trembling with a mix of shock and pride. She'd fought for her life, her son, her truth. Now she held the reins, flipping the script on every racist who had doubted her. Claire most of all. Claire's jail cell TV blared the broadcast. Her scream was a raw howl as she lunged at the screen, guards pinning her back. No, she can't have it. Her voice cracked, her pale hands clawing the air as Amara's face filled the frame. CEO, in bold letters beneath it. The reversal was absolute. Claire, the tyrant of first class, now caged. Amara, the slapped mother, now ruling the airline Claire had weaponized against her. The guard smirked, one muttering, "Guess you lost, Ramsey." As her manifesto's final echoes faded, her followers scattered like insects in the light. Amara took the podium, her voice steadying as she gripped the microphone. Isaiah's soft coos provided a calming rhythm beside her. "Horizon is changing," she declared, her tone a blend of steel and silk. "My first order. Anyone who spreads hate like Claire Ramsey is banned from our flights for life." The room erupted in cheers, applause thundering as Marcus nodded, his eyes filled with pride, a quiet fire within. She had turned survival into power, her battered hands rewriting the rules Claire had once lived by. Reporters scribbled, headlines forming. From victim to victor, Amara Jackson takes Horizon. The studio pulsed with a fresh energy, her reign beginning where Claire's ended. The broadcast cut to Claire's cell. Her final scream was drowned out by Amara's voice, a poetic echo of the intercom that had ignited this war. "You'll never belong," Claire had shrieked, but Amara did more than Claire could have imagined. As the studio lights dimmed and the press conference wound down, Amara lingered. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon beyond the glass. She had faced a slap, a smear, a mob, a fire, jail, and a hitman. Each blow had been heavier, each counterattack from Claire more ruthless. Yet here she stood, not just free, but commanding her victory. A middle finger to the hate that had tried to crush her. Marcus leaned in, his whisper warm against her ear. "You're unstoppable." Amara smiled, faint but fierce, her fingers brushing Isaiah's curls. "We are," she corrected, her voice a vow. As the reporters dispersed and the cameras stilled, her story continued to burn on. 5 million views and counting. A tidal wave Claire couldn't outrun. The airline was hers. The power was hers. The future was hers. She had flipped the world upside down. A black mother with a baby, now the face of Horizon. A legacy born from ash and defiance. Claire slumped in her cell, the TV dark. Her screams faded to silence as the guards walked away. Her manifesto, her mob, her hitman, all dust. Amara's first order had banned her kind. A poetic end to a war that had started with a slap. The jail walls closed in on Claire, her power a memory, while Amara's soared. A reversal so complete it left no room for doubt. The studio emptied. Los Angeles sprawled beyond, and Amara stepped into her new life, battered but unbroken. Her son in her arms, her husband at her side, her throne secured. This gripping tale of Amara Jackson's battle against Claire Ramsey offers profound lessons rooted in resilience, justice, and the fight against systemic hate. First, it reveals the raw power of perseverance. Amara faced a slap, a smear campaign, a mob, a burning home, jail, and a hitman. Each blow fueled by racism. Yet she never broke. Her story teaches us that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet will to stand up again and again against overwhelming odds. Second, it exposes the danger of unchecked prejudice. Claire's assumption that Amara didn't belong in first class spiraled into a war of hate, showing how bias, when given power, can destroy lives. It's a stark reminder to question our own judgments and confront the stereotypes we carry. Third, the tale underscores the might of collective action. Amara's live streams turned strangers into allies, toppling Claire's lies with truth amplified by millions. It proves that united voices can shift narratives and dismantle injustice. Finally, the shocking twist, Amara's rise to CEO, teaches that victory isn't just survival, it's rewriting the rules. She turned pain into power, banning hate from Horizon Airlines, proving that those who endure can redefine the systems that oppress them. This isn't just a story. It's a call to recognize our own agency in fighting wrongs. So what's the takeaway? Stand firm, speak out, and challenge hate, because even one voice can spark a revolution. What do you think? Could you face what Amara did and come out stronger? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if this moved you. Subscribe for more tales of grit, and share to spread the fight against racism. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Here's to courage, justice, and a world where every seat belongs to everyone.